Great, so you're nearly there now. So all we've got left to do is to work 2 rounds of granny square clusters, either end of the cowl to give it a bit more depth, and I just think it finishes off the edge really nicely. So we've still got our yarn attached to that final square, so we're going to start off the next round by chain 3 and then turn our work. So it's almost like you're working on the inside of the cowl now. So if I lay this out first so you can see. There you go. So I'm working on this back bit here. So we're going to do 2 treble crochets into the chain 1 space to the left of the chain 3. Then chain 1. And then work into the next space. Like so, and then chain 1. And you just keep doing that all around. The only place it's a little bit different is here when you meet the joins. So rather than going into either of these corners from the original squares, you're going to work in the gap between the 2 squares. So I've done chain 1 after this treble crochet cluster, and then I'm just going to work a cluster in between like so. So that's 1 treble crochet, 2, 3, then chain 1. And then I'm going to work the next one into this chain 1 space over here. So again, 3 treble crochets into there. And that's all you do all the way around is chain 1 and then work 3 treble crochets into each chain 1 space. And then ignore these corners, but treat this join here as a chain 1 space as well. So if you want to carry on and work all the way around, and then just slip stitch into the beginning of here, I'll meet you back there. Great, so I've worked a full round there of those granny square clusters all the way around one edge, so you can see here how it works in between the join and then into the chain 1 spaces. So I'm just going to slip stitch into the first cluster that we did. Oh, not like that. Like so. And then we're just going to finish off here and snip the yarn and then just pull through. So what we're going to do is work another colour onto here. So I'm going to use the same natural colour that I've used on the other squares. So to attach the second colour, I'll just do a slip knot, like so, put the yarn on the hook, and then you can do this in any of the chain 1 spaces. Just put the hook through, and then yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over, pull through the 2 loops on the hook. So it's like working a double crochet, and then I just count that as one of my chains for my starting chain 3. So chain another one, chain another one. There we go. And then that's effectively your first treble crochet in the cluster you're going to work into here. So 2 more clusters into this chain 1 space. and then chain 1, and then work another cluster into the next chain 1 space. And there's nothing tricky about this, you just do that all the way around. So all of your spaces now are standard chain 1 spaces, so you can just carry on working this round in the alternating colour until you get back round to here, and then again you'll just slip stitch into the top of this first cluster and then snip the yarn and finish off. Great, so you've done 2 rounds of granny square clusters now on this one edge of the cowl, and you can see here how the contrasting colours works really nicely, I think, and really shows off the pattern. But we've still got to do the same on this other end of the cowl. So once we've done 2 rounds of clusters on this end, then all we've got left to do after that is sew in the ends, and then you're done. So I like to alternate the colours on this end. So I like to start, in this case I'd start with the lighter yarn, because I started with the darker purple yarn on this edge. So again, you're just going to make a slip knot and put the yarn onto the hook, and then you can choose any of the chain spaces. I like to use one of the squares that's the same colour as the yarn that you're attaching, so that when you come in to sew these ends in, it will be easier to hide where you've done that. So I'm going to just join it in here, so hook through and then do a double crochet there, and then chain 2 like so, and then do 2 treble crochets into that same chain 1 space, and then it's exactly the same principle. So chain 1, work 3 treble crochets into the next chain 1 space, chain 1, then again work 3 treble crochets into the next chain 1 space, and then chain 1, and then remember you're not going to work into these corner bits here, you're going to work into the gap, into the join between the 2 squares. So you're just treating that join like your chain 1 space. So you work a cluster into there, then chain 1, and then into this next chain 1 space, and then carry on working all the way around. And as with the previous rounds, once you have got back to the beginning, you will slip stitch into the top of this first cluster on the round, and then finish off your yarn, then attach the second colour as you have done with this round, and then just work another round of clusters, and then once you've done that, you're absolutely finished. Great, there we go. So we're all done now. We've got 2 rounds of clusters either end, and as you can see, I've used that kind of alternating colour scheme. So the last thing I want to show you is just how to sew in some of the ends. So I'm not going to do all of them now on the video, but I'll just show you some in a few different places. So just take a needle like so. So the first one that I'm going to show you how to sew in is the ones in the middle of these magic circles. So theoretically, some people might say that you don't need to sew in the end here, but I just like to absolutely make sure, because the last thing you'd want is your scarf unravelling after you've spent all this time making such a lovely snuggly scarf. So I'll just give that another tug just to make sure that magic circle is closed properly. And then I'm just going to continue to work it around the circle. So through and then through a bit more. And I always say when sewing ends in, you want to feel some resistance as you're pulling the yarn through, because that's what's going to stop it slipping when the garment's in use and starting that to unravel. So there you go, there's the magic circle done. Next one I'm going to show you is these ones where you've finished off, you've slip stitched at the end of a round and then finished your yarn off. So again, I just thread that onto the needle, like so. So where you've slip stitched that, it's at the top of a chain 3. So I pop the needle into the top and then I sew it through that chain 3 stitch. And then where these treble crochets have worked into this chain 1 space, I thread it through here. Again, can you kind of hear that resistance? You can probably see as I pull it. And then I just kind of straighten that out a little bit. And then I am going to go back through the same space, like so. Pull that yarn through. Oh. And then just, again, just kind of straighten that out a bit. Make sure it's not too bunched up. And then I'm going to snip that nice and carefully. There, near to there. And that's normally how I hide my ends in a granny square. You can see here we've got another one. This is where we attached the yarn with the new colour. So again, pop that onto there. And then I'm going to thread this through the same cluster. There, like so. I'm just going to give that a little snip there. And that's how I would go about sewing my ends in. So I've shown you how to do the ones near the magic circles, and then the ones where you've attached the yarn and where you've finished the yarn off. So that's it. Go ahead and finish off your cowl by sewing all the ends in, and then it will be ready to keep you warm this winter.